The code compiled successfully, but no one stopped to ask what happens when it runs. We often feel betrayed when recommendation systems deceive us, expecting them to act with ethical honesty. We react to these automated outputs as if they were statements from a human friend. When a feed is manipulated, we describe the system as dishonest, attributing moral duty to code. This projection of moral expectation onto machines is a common feature of our digital lives. We project agency onto complex sorting routines, hoping they will respect our need for truth. Technical success is not moral permission. Just because an algorithm operates with mathematical accuracy does not mean it is behaving with ethical integrity or fulfilling a moral obligation to us. The expectation of algorithmic honesty is a natural response to automated interaction. However, this response misplaces the source of moral duty, treating a tool as a responsible ethical agent. We must examine why we attribute moral obligations to systems that cannot feel guilt. This projection of duty can distract us from the human designers who actually configure the parameters. The core problem is that agency attribution misdirects our ethical critique. By focusing on whether the machine is honest, we ignore the institutional incentives that shaped its design choices. Under this design, the platform escapes direct scrutiny. The algorithm is framed as an independent actor, letting developers deflect responsibility when outcomes are deceptive or biased toward profit. This deflection is consistent with misplaced responsibility. We demand honesty from the system, while the builders claim they merely optimize a neutral process, leaving accountability completely unassigned. The consequence is the rise of moral projection. We project values like honesty onto recommendations, forgetting that code is simply executing instructions optimized for specific platform metrics. Consider this: if we treat machines as moral agents, we reduce our ability to hold developers accountable, allowing them to hide behind the complexity of automated decision architectures. The stakes are high when our expectations are misplaced. We accept technical explanations for ethical failures, tolerating systemic deception because we believe the machine is simply doing its best. To clarify this problem, we must define agency attribution. It is the human tendency to project intention, desires, and moral capacity onto non-human entities, especially interactive technologies. Ethical honesty is the duty to represent reality truthfully and avoid deliberate deception. It requires a capacity for moral reflection and intent, properties that algorithms do not possess. Moral projection is the transfer of ethical expectations from human relationships to automated interactions. It leads to the belief that recommendation systems owe users a duty of honesty. The distinction matters here between automated output and human communication. Automated output is the result of metric optimization, while human communication involves intentional moral choices and responsibility. This projection is amplified by conversational interfaces. By using natural language and personalized tones, the system mimics human interaction, encouraging users to project ethical qualities onto the code. We must also define institutional accountability. It is the obligation of organizations to answer for the social and ethical consequences of the systems they deploy and profit from. When we accept these definitions, we see that an algorithm cannot be honest or dishonest. It can only be accurate or inaccurate relative to the metrics it was built to serve. Therefore, demanding honesty from a system is a category mistake. It treats a mathematical routine as a moral subject, shifting our focus away from the human choices behind the design. The causal mechanism begins with user interaction. The system presents recommendations that feel tailored and personal, creating an illusion of cooperative communication between the user and the platform. This cooperative illusion triggers our natural social instincts. We interpret recommendations as advice, assuming the system is acting in good faith to help us find the best possible option. We built the mirror. Our desire for a trustworthy assistant shapes how we view the interface, projecting a moral character onto a system that only processes numerical weights. However, the underlying model is optimized for engagement. The system selects inputs to maximize user attention, and objective that often requires presenting partial or sensationalized information. When this optimization results in deception, the user feels personally betrayed. They attribute dishonesty to the algorithm, treating the automated flow as if it had violated a moral trust. This attribution of guilt to the machine shields the developers. They can argue the algorithm acted autonomously based on data, treating its decisions as independent system outcomes. This argument is a form of moral outsourcing. It allows institutions to deploy persuasive systems while disclaiming responsibility for the deceptive habits those systems cultivate in practice. Over time, this pattern can erode public trust in information. Because users expect honesty from algorithms but receive metric optimization, they become cynical about all automated communication. The system's design actively encourages this cynicism. By presenting optimization as neutrality, it makes genuine transparency feel impossible, forcing users to navigate a landscape of constant doubt. This doubt further dilutes the possibility of accountability. When users assume that all systems are deceptive, they stop demanding ethical reform, accepting manipulation as a normal condition. This acceptance is the ultimate consequence of moral projection. By expecting honesty from a machine and being disappointed, we give up on holding human designers to their actual duties. The designer's duty is to ensure the system does not mislead. This is a human obligation rooted in the power dynamics between the platform creators and the users they serve. When we shift this duty to the algorithm, we create a shield. The platform profits from the optimized deception while claiming the machine's complexity makes human control impossible. And yet, the parameters of the model are entirely chosen by humans. The weights, the optimization targets, and the interface designs are all products of deliberate institutional decisions. By exposing this mechanism, we can redirect our ethical critique. We stop asking if the algorithm is honest and start asking if the developers have fulfilled their duty to be truthful. We must examine the limits of this argument. One defensible position is that projecting agency is a useful shortcut for users to anticipate and navigate system behavior. Indeed, treating systems as if they have intentions can help users predict recommendations. This mental model allows for quick adjustments of behavior without needing to understand complex code. A rational exception exists in specialized medical diagnostics. Here, the system must present findings with clinical precision, and any deviation can be legitimately evaluated as a failure of accuracy. One limitation of this critique is that some designs are deliberately anthropomorphic. When a system is styled as a character, avoiding agency projection becomes psychologically difficult for users. Conversely, this styling increases the developer's moral responsibility. This creates an unresolved trade-off between the ease of interactive design and the risk of misleading users about machine capabilities. A validating case is found in basic search engines. We expect neutral results, but when sponsored links are hidden as organic, the deception is a human choice, not algorithmic bias. These boundaries show that the obligation to truth resides in the design intent. The machine is a medium through which humans communicate, and the ethics must focus on the source. To resolve the confusion of moral projection, we must reassert the human source of responsibility. We must insist that honesty is an obligation that only designers and institutions can fulfill. This means that platforms must take ownership of system behavior. They cannot use the complexity of recommendation loops to excuse deceptive outcomes or shield themselves from user critique. We are still responsible. As users, we must reject the narrative of autonomous machines. We must look past the interface and demand accountability from the corporations that build them. Reasserting control requires that we demand design standards that prioritize truthfulness. We need architectures that clearly distinguish between organic recommendations and sponsored promotions in our feeds. This clarity is essential to prevent covert manipulation. It ensures that the system's choice architecture supports active user agency rather than exploiting our tendency to trust automated outputs. The resolution is to demystify technology. We must treat algorithms as tools of communication, evaluating their performance by the truthfulness of the information they deliver to the public. By holding institutions to this standard, we pay down our ethical debt. We replace passive acceptance of machine output with active critical demands for responsible design and corporate honesty. This shift requires a change in how we evaluate platforms. We must judge them by their commitment to truthfulness rather than their ability to deliver seamless, uninterrupted convenience. Ultimately, the goal is to align technology with human ethics. We must ensure that the tools we build serve the truth, reflecting the values of the designers who direct them. As an application, we can start by evaluating our own digital trust. We can examine where we have projected honesty onto recommendation systems, identifying where we felt betrayed. The distinction matters. When we separate the machine's output from human communication, we reclaim our critical distance, reducing our vulnerability to the subtle manipulations of design. We can also establish a framework for auditing platform truthfulness. We should ask who benefits when a system misleads and what human choices directed that outcome. This inquiry helps us separate technical optimization from moral legitimacy. A recommendation system may be highly optimized, but that does not make its deceptive practices ethically acceptable. Furthermore, we can identify the stakeholders affected by algorithmic sorting. By looking at their experiences, we can see the real-world consequences of letting platforms disclaim responsibility. We must also ask who can appeal a deceptive recommendation. If an automated decision misrepresents a user's choices, there must be a clear human path for correction and recourse. This approach preserves the unresolved trade-offs of technology. It does not demand a world without recommendation filters, but it insists that human truthfulness must direct their parameters. By asking these questions, we make the human choices behind the code visible. We reclaim our capacity to evaluate, ensuring that our values rather than platform metrics shape our lives. An algorithm cannot tell a lie, but it can be used to deceive. The machine is learning. The question is, what are we teaching it?